Shalom. This is a response to your video, Rabbi. Um, Reasons why Messianics believe that Elohim has a triune nature. Starting with Genesis 19, I'll just read a few passages showing why Messianics believe that God has a triune nature. We believe the Shema, we believe God is one, but we believe that God is triune. The Latin word Trinity meaning three in oneness, in the same sense that you have one molecule of water, two hydrogens and one oxygen forms one molecule of water. So that molecule is triune. But we don't really use that word triune, we just use the word one. I believe much in the same sense, similar, God is one, He is Echad, but that God is triune. Let's see, Genesis 19 verse 24, and it says, "Then Adonai caused sulfur and fire to rain down upon Sodom and Amorah from Adonai out of the sky." It says right there that God rained from Adonai, rained sulfur from the sky from Adonai. I mean, this is very strange if you consider the fact that if God doesn't have a triune nature, this is very strange, a strange way to word things. Isaiah 9, Yeshayahu. Let's see, let me get there. Isaiah 9. I'm using my virtual Bible here. Isaiah 9 and verse 6. It says, "For a child is born to us, a son is given to us, dominion will rest on his shoulders, and he will be given the name Pele Yoetz, El Gibor, Aviad, Sar Shalom, Wonder of a Counselor, Mighty God, Father of Eternity, Prince of Peace." Okay, so here we see that it says this child who is born would be called El Gibor, Mighty God. He would be called Sar Shalom. He would be called Aviad, Father of Eternity, or Everlasting Father. Okay, then we go to Micah, chapter 5, Micah 5. Let's see, what am I looking for? Micah 5. We'll start at verse 1. It says, "Now gather yourselves in troops. You who are accustomed to being in troops, they have laid siege to us. They are striking the judge of Israel on the cheek with a stick. But you, Beit Lechem, near Ephrat, so small among the clans of Yehudah, out of you will come forth to me the future ruler of Israel, whose origins are far in the past, back in ancient times." So, the question comes up, how is it that this Messiah figure who is born, who comes from the Hebrew people, how is it that he's born but yet he's ancient? How can a newborn be ancient? So you see clearly, this is part of the reason why we believe that Messiah is in fact Yahweh, Hashem, that Messiah is in fact divine, as the scriptures show. Go to Daniel, chapter 7. Let's see the verse I'm looking for, because I'm not trying to read an entire chapter to you. I just want to get to the point. I always like it when people just get to the point. Verse 13, and it says, "I kept watching the night visions, when I saw, coming with the clouds of heaven, someone like a son of man. He approached the Ancient One and was led into his presence. To him was given rulership, glory, and a kingdom, so that all peoples, nations, and languages should serve him. His rulership is an eternal rulership that will not pass away, and his kingdom is one that will never be destroyed. So, in the book of Isaiah, we read that there is no God but Hashem. There is none before him, there would be none after him. And it says in Isaiah that Elokeinu does not share his glory with another. So, if he doesn't share his glory with another, and here we read that this person that was like a son of man receives glory, and that his kingdom is everlasting, how is it that he is not, in fact, God? I mean, this seems like a clear contradiction in Torah, a clear contradiction in the Tanakh. Again, it says, he approached the Ancient One and was led into his presence. To him was given rulership. And we know that it is written, worship and serve the Lord your God, and him alone shall you serve. And it says, glory. And we read that in Isaiah, he doesn't share his glory with another. And a kingdom, so that all peoples, nations, languages should serve him. And his rulership is eternal, that will not pass away, and the kingdom is one that will never be destroyed. So, with these passages we're reading about Yahweh raining down sulfur from Adonai, it seems very clear to me that, that God is in fact triune. Otherwise, we have some issues that I find very difficult to get around. Let's see. Listen to some more of your video.
People typically wear a head covering or tzitzis or trying to keep all the commandments. And the Messianic believer, just like the traditional Protestant Christian, believes in salvation through faith alone, with the addition.
Okay. That's another point I want to make about this idea of salvation by grace through faith. This idea of salvation by grace through faith isn't something new. Okay, this was revealed from the very beginning. Okay, Abraham, our father, Avinu, Abraham, he was in his father's land, and then Elohim comes to him one day and tells him to come out of his father's country and go into the land in which he would show him. God didn't choose Abraham because Abraham was obeying Torah. He didn't choose Abraham because Abraham was keeping Hashem's commandments. Clearly, God chose him by grace through faith. Again, you have it with the Hebrew people. We see all throughout Torah on how the Hebrew people fell into sin. I mean, right after they were pulled out of Mitzrayim, out of Egypt, they set up the golden calf. So, and many of that generation of the Israelites never even entered into the promised land because of their disobedience. They didn't enter the promised land what God had commanded. They complained about the manna which God gave. So we see all throughout Torah that God's people, they were selected, they were chosen, they were saved by His grace. It wasn't that because of some great righteousness that they displayed. Because, and we read in Tehillim, it is said that there is none that doeth good. There's none that does good. No, not one. And that God does not, so, it isn't keeping of the Torah that anyone is saved. If keeping the Torah was all that was necessary to be saved, Elohim wouldn't have required that there be a sacrifice on the Day of Atonement. He wouldn't have it a lamb sacrificed and spread over the doorpost on Passover, if our deeds were all that was required to enter into heaven. I mean, on the Day of Atonement, the high priest, who we know was probably keeping the Torah ever since he was a child and who was circumcised, had to offer up a sacrifice for himself and a sacrifice for his people and the priest. So it isn't keeping of Torah that sins are atoned for. Vayikra 17, Leviticus 17 says that it is with the blood that you make atonement. So just keeping his commandments isn't enough. We still have this issue of sin that has to be removed. Even if we are obedient to his Torah, there's still this issue of sin that has to be atoned for. And these animals, they covered sin temporarily. They could never remove sin because obviously if God is having animals sacrificed once a year forever, these animals couldn't take away sin. They could only cover sin until the next year in which the sin would be atoned for on Yom Kippur. I think that's about all that I wanted to say. Real quickly, I'll just point out. Now this is from the letter that James wrote in the Brit Chadashah, in the New Testament. This is what it said. It says, "But someone will say that you have faith and I have actions. Show me this faith of yours without the actions, and I will show you my faith by my actions. You believe that God is one. Good for you. The demons believe it too. The thought makes them shudder with fear. But foolish fellow, do you want to be shown that such faith apart from actions is barren? Wasn't Abraham Avinu declared righteous because of his actions when he offered up his son Yitzchak on the altar? You see that faith worked with his actions. By the actions, the faith was made complete, and the message in the passage of the Tanakh was fulfilled, which says Abraham had faith in God, and it was credited to his account as righteousness. He was even called God's friend. You see that a person is declared righteous because of his actions and not because of faith alone. It is because a person believes that they act upon what they act upon. True faith leads to obedience in Torah. But it isn't our obedience that saves us, it is our faith that saves us. You wouldn't do something, you wouldn't do the Torah unless you first believe the Torah. You have to believe those words are divinely inspired by Hashem. I want to read this passage from Romans 4. And it says, "Then what should we say Abraham, our forefather, obtained by his own efforts? For if Abraham came to be considered righteous by God because of legalistic observances, then he has something to boast about. But this is not how it is before God. For what does the Tanakh say? Abraham put his trust in God, and it was credited to his account as righteousness." Now, the account of someone who is working is credited not on the ground of grace, but on the ground of what is owed him. However, in the case of one who is not working but rather is trusting in him who makes ungodly people righteous, his trust is credited to him as righteousness. In the same way, the blessing which David pronounces is on those whom God credits with righteousness apart from legalistic observances. Blessed are those whose transgressions are forgiven, whose sins are covered over. Blessed is the man whose sin Adonai will not reckon against his account. So, we see that it's because Abraham first believed. He believed Hashem, he trusted Hashem, and then acted upon what Hashem commanded of him because he believed Hashem, that it was credited to his account as righteousness. So it isn't Torah keeping, it is faith that leads to Torah keeping. True faith leads to obedience, right? So that's all I have to say for now. Shalom. I hope you have a good day.